Welcome to Godless Panthers, Christianity is Creepy, Part 4. In the last segment, we left off with a couple of clips of David Barton lying about the Constitution and the Bible. And we'll continue with that. Let's just look at one of Barton's examples of verbatim, the part of the Constitution that describes two eyewitnesses for a conviction of treason reads, "No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court." Ezekiel chapter 18 verse 20 reads, "The soul that sinneth, it shall die. The son shall not bear the iniquity of the father, neither shall the father bear the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon him, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him." Forget verbatim. I don't see a trace of a connection. Now I will try an experiment here. I will choose a random crot from the Constitution and a random verse from the Bible. Article 6, number 2 reads, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all the treaties made, or which shall be made, under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding." Esther, chapter 1, verse 19 reads, "If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it not be altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she." It appears to me that random pairing did much better than Barton did. Not all of Barton's lies can be debunked so effortlessly. Chris Rada has done an excellent job parsing out the numerous lies and inaccuracies in her book, Liars for Jesus. I recommend it, and it is available for free online in its entirety. So why would Barton use these terms direct quote and verbatim when he can't possibly come close to backing that up with reality? Remember that he is speaking to people who want to be lied to. Are they going to actually do what I just did and go through the Constitution and the Bible to compare the two quotes? No, they won't. So the next question would be, why do these people want so much to believe that the United States is an expressly Christian nation? It is because that concept, in their minds, justifies their political agenda. They believe that their political goals are based on Christianity, but they certainly don't want their patriotism to be questioned. So what they are trying to do is conflate Christian theocracy with American patriotism, and Barton provides for them a method, a dishonest method, but a method nonetheless of doing so. To be clear, the Constitution of the United States is an entirely and decidedly secular document. Article 6, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. No religious test to hold any office means just that. This one passage in the Constitution closes the case. The U.S. Constitution does not contain the words God or Jesus. The American fundies just have to live with that. The Constitution does not contain the word fuck. And hey, I have to live with that. If we want to close the case again, we look no further than the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The very first sentence of the First Amendment declares that this is not a Christian or Wiccan or any other religion kind of country. There are no blasphemy laws. There are not supposed to be any special legal rights given to any member of any religion, period. What creeps like Barton will say is that the wall of separation between church and state is one-directional. that the government may not interfere with the operation of religion, but religion may influence and interfere with the operation of government, specifically Christian religion, that is. If the wall is one directional, then it has to be the other way around. It is the obligation of a secular government to place legal restrictions on the way that a religious group operates to be sure that the group does not violate federal law. A religious group may not practice human sacrifice, establish laws that favor their particular brand of superstition, stone people to death, practice polygamy, commit genocide, happily dash babies' heads against the rocks, or numerous other things that the Bible allows or commands people to do. Free exercise means free exercise within the bounds of federal law, and federal law is secular. As I and many others see it, the free exercise clause is to protect minority religions, not to allow the majority to do whatever they want to. In a society that values liberty and justice for all, it can't work any other way. The majority religion in the U.S., Christianity, needs no protection. It's like Godzilla. The rest of us need protection from it. I'm going to give two examples in which minority religions are given special rights. One I have no problem with, the other is atrocious and needs to be abolished. If you want to take the drug peyote in a specified peyote ceremony, you may do so legally. If you want to take peyote in your living room and listen to Miles Davis, you are breaking the law. For taking peyote, not for listening to Miles Davis. I'm okay with that. No animals were harmed in the process. Does this give special rights to members of a religious minority? Technically, yes, but I don't care about that in this instance. I see it as a reasonable compromise, free exercise of religion. The second situation has to do with about a dozen children who end up dead every year due to parents who rely on superstitious ritual rather than medical treatment. These children end up dead because of conditions that are easily treatable. In 39 states, there is a legal exemption for parents who would rather see their children suffer and die than behave as parents to them. There is no compromise here. The Christian Science Church and others like it are just despicable. Killing children is not a free exercise of religion, it's murder. Maintaining the separation of church and state is a difficult thing to balance, as it should be. The USA is a religiously diverse society, and this diversity creates a high level of complexity for these issues. The examples that I gave are at the far ends of the spectrum, the first being innocuous, the second horrendous. Situations that are in the middle between the two ought to be considered carefully. What the Christian nationalists really want to do is eradicate this separation of church and state. From here, I will discuss the extreme end of the Christian nationalists, a group that we call dominionists. But before that, I would like to recapitulate what we've gone over thus far. I started out with the Phelps cult so I could establish my views on free speech. If you do not believe in free speech for those you detest the most, you don't believe in it at all. This is one of those quotes that has been attributed to numerous people. We'll just say the author is anonymous. I've established that on a political level, the WBC is not as dangerous as Fox News, and how Fox's demagoguery is intended to fuel Christian exclusivity and bolster bigotry and hostility toward minority religious groups. Then I went over the pros and cons of the New Agers, who were the victims of Fox's bigotry, and how this bigotry fuels Christian nationalism, which brings us to David Barton and the separation of church and state. Now we're going into the dominionist aspect of Christian nationalism and the even more extreme Christian reconstructionism. So to stay with me here, I'm going to have to define some terms that I will be expounding upon. Chapter 5, Dominionism and Reconstructionism. Raise your hands if you think that the very idea of theocracy is creepy as fuck. I will start by defining reconstructionism, as this is the simpler of the two of Christian exclusivist movements. Rousas J. Rushdoony founded the movement in the early 1970s. The Reconstructionists advocate the most extreme form of biblical theocracy. They differ from Christian nationalism in that they have no desire to maintain any illusion of U.S. patriotism. They want to do away with the U.S. system of government altogether and replace it with a strict, uncompromising Christian theocracy. They believe that the absolute literal interpretation of the Bible ought to be the law of the land, complete with stoning to death adulterers, homosexuals, bad little boys and girls, blasphemers, etc. They do believe that slavery, as it described in the Bible, ought to be instituted. Yes, they are the crazies of the crazies of the crazies. Rushdoony died in 2001. The movement that he started never had anything close to a large following. Today, there are very few advocates of strict Reconstructionism, or are there? Now we come to the dominionists. Discussing the different types of dominionists can get incredibly complex and nebulous. Different authors such as Michelle Goldberg, Fred Clarkston, Sarah Diamond, Chip Bertlett, and others have their different takes on the different types of Christian dominionism. So I will try to simplify it as much as possible for the purposes of this video. To add to the complexity, there is not an actual group of people who refer to themselves as dominionists. People who have been studying this cultural phenomenon coined the term. Some insist that there is no group of people who are advocating a Christian theocracy in this manner, and that the term dominionist is used by people entertaining a paranoid fantasy. Here are the names of people I can provide who clearly embrace dominionist political strategy: Rick Perry, Sarah Palin, Michelle Bachmann, Newt Gingrich, and of course David Barton. This is not just a paranoid fantasy. First of all, let's just examine the term itself, dominionist. This refers to Christian groups who believe that they ought to have dominion over the land such that Christians have complete control, dominion, over various aspects, if not all aspects, of our culture. The justification for this concept is rooted in the Bible, the book of Genesis, specifically Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." To the dominionists, this means that Christians have an obligation, not permission, a mandate to take dominion over the world. It is also based on their end-time scenario. They believe that Jesus Christ will return to the earth, but not until the world is properly prepared for his return. This is called postmillennialism. It differs from the rapture believers in terms of time frame of the return of Christ. The dominionists consider that the Bible is to be inerrant and literally absolute truth. They believe that as a society we ought to be absolutely obedient to the Word of God. It is this mass obedience that will allow the return of Jesus. Dominionism ranges in degrees of adamancy from soft Christian nationalism on the left end of the spectrum, which is to say we are a Christian nation in name only, to hard reconstructionism on the right edge, which would be absolute, uncompromising, worldwide Christian version of the Taliban. Let's go over some of the main points of dominion theology as it relates to the social political situation in contemporary America. There are many groups that are advocating a dominionist theocratic rule in the United States. Perhaps the most prominent is the New Apostolic Reformation.